Hi everyone, my name is Brittany. Welcome back to my channel. And today I will be talking about my January 2023 reads.
It's Brittany, bitch.
So I told you in my reading update that I would be updating you on all the books that I read in a monthly wrap up, but it's like mid-February now, actually probably late February. So I'm really late on this, but also that was because I was moving and I'm going to try to be better about updating you guys with the books I'm reading on a monthly basis. And I did read 6 books in January. So I read a lot less than I wanted to. I was planning on reading at least around like 14, 15 because I had so many audiobooks planned, but that didn't happen. That's looking like it's gonna be more of a February thing. But I did read 6 books. I read Scythe, and this is the first novel in the Arc of a Scythe series. This is one of my favorite books of all time. It is a young adult sci-fi dystopian story about a world where nobody dies, so they have to have people who are assigned to glean people or basically murder people in whatever way they want to cut down on overpopulation. So this whole story is just very interesting. I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I did it for my favorites reading vlog, and it's still a favorite and it still counts. And if you want to hear more of my thoughts about that, please go check out that video. I also read Barbarian's Mate, which is the 6th in the Ice Planet Barbarian series, and I fell in love with this series last year whenever I read the first one, and I'm just like slowly making my way through these books because I just find them so enjoyable and so much fun to listen to. I really enjoy the narrators they have for these books, and they're just a really fun, smutty time. I gave this book 4 stars, and we're following Josie and Hayden, who we knew were kind of gonna hook up at the end of the last book, and they are mated. So now they get to start their lives together, and it's a very interesting premise because Josie really wants kids, and conveniently her IUD falls out, so she's able to now resonate to a male, and she gets resonated to Hayden, and her and him are just kind of like polar opposites and don't like each other, but I think a lot of the reason they didn't like each other is because they actually did like each other. It's one of those things, but they definitely were enemies to lovers, and the whole series really laid it on very thick with them, but I kind of appreciated that their characters never like broke character, right? So they've always like never really liked each other, and they didn't have insta love, which I really appreciate about this book because I think a lot of the matings kind of happen in an insta lovey way, but they both really fought their kui, they really fought their resonation. It was really interesting. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4.25 stars, and I would totally recommend it. Also, this has the best cover in the series so far, in my personal opinion. The next one I read was Say Yes to the Marquess by Tessa Dare, and this is the 2nd book in the Castles Ever After series. I actually started this series last year, and I don't know, I just kind of wanted to like finish it out because I enjoyed the first book, even though I only gave it 3 stars. I just thought I would continue on with the series because I really like Tessa Dare's writing. Unfortunately, this one only got 2 stars from me. I just feel like this premise just wasn't, I don't know, it was interesting. I mean, the whole premise from the very beginning was so weak and just uncompelling. Our heroine named Cleo has been engaged for 8 freaking years to Pierce Brandon, okay? 8 years she's been engaged to this man. After she finally gathers the courage to break off the engagement, his brother steps in and keeps trying to get them back together. And it just kind of makes no fucking sense because it's quite obvious that the hero and the heroine are falling in love, but he keeps trying to get her to marry his brother and literally like plans their fucking wedding for them. It was so weird. And she also made it abundantly clear she had no intentions of marrying Pierce, even if he did like come back and be like, hey, I actually love you. She was like, I'm totally done with this. I'm moving on with my life. It's been 8 fucking years. I need to move on. It was just so unconvincing to read that he wanted them to get married. It just made no sense too. Like, it was just such a it was a weird plot. I didn't like it at all. I just didn't like the premise to begin with because I just thought it was kind of weird, but especially like seeing how hard he pushes for this wedding, and every time she's like no, he's like, well, let's pick up the flowers or let's pick up the fucking cake. I'm like, who the fuck wrote this? This makes no sense. Like, who thought this was a great plot for a book? I have no idea. So I ended up giving it 2 stars. It just didn't work for me. The woman's not gonna change her mind. Stop trying to fucking ask her if she's gonna change her mind about the fucking wedding she's been trying to call off for 8 years, and she finally had the balls to do it. Just stop. I mean, our hero Rafe is literally like the poster child for toxic masculinity, and he says like one nice thing about her body because she's obviously a curvy heroine, and like everyone like falls over heads of heels of love with this dude. I mean, one nice comment does not a hero make, okay? So I just completely disagree and did not support this book. 2 stars. Bye. The next book I read was When a Scot Ties the Knot, which is also by Tessa Dare, which is also the 3rd in the Castles Ever After series, and I was really fucking excited for this one because I love Scottish books. I just have to say, Scottish historical romances just really get me. I don't know what it is, so I was extremely excited for this book. I ended up giving it 3 stars. It let me down a little bit, but it wasn't terrible. Let me explain. I mean, this literally sounds like a book about my life if I was like in the historical times, okay? So basically we're following our main character, Madeline, okay? And what's up happening is she's so socially awkward and she loves to draw and stuff. So she basically invents Captain Mackenzie. She is like, I don't want to be introduced into society. I just want to be left alone. And so she makes up this lover who lives in Scotland. So she keeps writing to a Captain Mackenzie, literally writing letters till she eventually like kills him off, dude. Like she basically even mourns for like a year, telling her family that like her lover died. So like she can't get married. And so that way they're not going to keep pressuring her to go back into London society because they thought she was basically taken, and then they thought that her lover died. It's fucking brilliant, and what a great idea for a plot, and so different from the fucking second book in the series. To her surprise, Captain Mackenzie is a real man who comes home from the war, and sounds like a great idea, but I just feel like their chemistry sucked, and they really fell flat in terms of my expectations. Okay, so like, what a cool premise, what a great way to mash characters together, and I just feel like it just didn't really work. There are also a lot of like plot holes with their backstories and like storylines. So like one second he was like super nice and like a sweet, devoted bookworm, and he was like always talking to her, and then the next time he like barely talked to her, he was like cold and distant. Like, I mean, it was like whiplash. It didn't really make any sense for his character or her character. Like, they just kind of acted differently, especially him. Like, it just didn't really fit the narrative, and also like, why would I want to root for this dude whenever he's kind of being a complete dick for no reason? Also, the smutness was kind of boring for what we had. I was just expecting a lot more because I really liked Tessa Dare's smut, but this one was like kind of laughable, and they constantly just kept overusing certain phrases or talking about like breeding parts or like staff. It was just like really awkward and weird, and like just was like, ooh, like a little cringe. And they kept saying like where he or she like needed it the most. Like, I'm done with this. Can we make up something else? Thanks. Did I enjoy the penny dropping Scottish accents in this? Absolutely, but they shouldn't live up to my high lofty expectations of what I really want in a Scottish historical romance. So got 3 stars out of me. The next book I read was Lessons in Chemistry, which is a really famous like historical romance book. I don't even know if I'd really call it historical romance, but I guess it could also just be classified as historical. But this book was a very interesting novel. It's kind of hard to describe, but I ended up giving it 4 stars. I just feel like in a lot of ways it was a really good book, but I feel like this is a very polarizing novel. And I feel like a lot of people have a lot of 1-star reviews and there's a lot of 5-star reviews. I feel like it's one of those that just, it's kind of hard to put into a category. And this book kind of gave me the similar vibes to The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is one of my favorite books, and I really enjoyed that because we're basically following our main character, Elizabeth Zott. So she's like a mid-century chemist, right? So this is back in like the 1950s and 60s, and she's obviously struggling to make herself known in a man-dominated field as well as, you know, world. While working on her chemistry and at her job, she actually ends up falling in love with another chemist, and life kind of unfolds, and she ends up finding herself the single mother of a young child, and she also ends up working on a television show called Supper at 6. So it's just kind of a really interesting plot. Honestly, it's kind of hard to describe, but I feel like it really has like this old historical vibes, but a lot of this is way too modern, and it had too many like feminism modernities. I don't know the fuck to say that as, but it was a little too modern basically, and it kind of felt like she had time jumped from our current year back into the 1950s and 60s. And I even said that in my review that I feel like this story would have worked a little bit better if that was the case. Like, she went through time and went back in time and was like doing her job as a chemist from, you know, the 2020s back into the 1950s, and now she's shoved into this world because she was way too like modern and forward thinking, I think, for the time, and she just like said unapologetically, but it just came off really weird and trite. I don't know, it didn't always work for like the flow of the novel. She really felt like a time traveler. Like, if I pick this book apart too much, I don't really like it, but if I take it more, if it's face value, I really enjoyed it, and I feel like it was a really fun listen. But there's so many things going on here, I almost like need to break it down, but it's kind of hard to describe. And she was also perfect at everything. Like, she was like perfectly beautiful and didn't even know it, and she had no flaws, and she could just learn how to row, and she could learn how to do food chemistry, and she could learn how to do real chemistry, and she could learn how to do this, and she had like no problems learning anything. It was just, it felt really unrealistic and really frustrating that we have like this perfect, like not like other girls main character. And the biggest thing I'm really gonna say is this book apparently is shelved as humor and is told that it's laugh out loud funny, but this book is not funny really at all. I guess like some parts of it could be kind of comical. We have some points of view from a dog, but honestly, like, I mean, there's a very graphic sexual assault scene, like right in the very beginning, like graphic. I can't even describe to you how graphic it is, and I didn't really know that going into it at all. So I was quite surprised when I was listening to that, and I was like, am I really listening to this right now? Because was not expecting that. So yeah, it's quite dark, it's quite heavy, and it's very historically inaccurate. So if you're looking for a good time, I would say absolutely enjoy it, but if you're looking for something historically accurate of this time period, this book is not it. And the last book I read was Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson, and this is another 3-star from me, and I really enjoyed it. It was just kind of like a good audiobook to listen to, and it wasn't very long, but it was wasn't super enticing. Our main character Lillian is offered a position to watch her ex-best friend's stepkids, and these kind of kids basically catch on fire. So there's a lot of emotional baggage already coming with this, you know, being her ex-best friend and all the things that happen with that. But on top of that, now she's watching her ex-best friend's stepchildren who catch on fire, like actual fire. And it's a very like heartwarming and sweet book, but it's also like so poignant of the time. I don't know how to describe this book. Honestly, this book left me speechless because I don't really know what to say about it. Like, it was just kind of like there, and it wasn't groundbreaking or anything, but this book is definitely satirical and just kind of like left me thinking, but I don't really know what I'm supposed to think of. I mean, the connection with the children though were fucking priceless. Like, it was so sweet, but you definitely had to suspend your disbelief in this book. Like, if I had a former ex-best friend or whatever that asked me to come watch her stepkids, I wouldn't do it. And then on top of that, like, why would you reach out to your ex-best friend anyway, who doesn't raise children, has never had a kid, doesn't babysit? Like, it just kind of didn't really make any sense. I just feel like that part of the story just really left me confused. But I mean, overall, the story was really interesting, and I kind of liked the growing connection with the children. It was just really sweet, and I really liked the ending. So anyway, those are all the books that I read for January, and I wish I could have got this out to you guys a lot sooner, but I'm working on it, and hopefully I'll have the February up on time. So we're gonna see, but I still have quite a few things to film for you guys. I still have to film my best books of 2022, and I still need to film my Q4 watch list wrap up. So listen, I'm working on it. I'm working as tirelessly as I can, but I also have a job to do and a house to get in sorts. I mean, I've definitely gotten a lot better, but we're not 100% there. So anyway, if there's anything you guys want me to read coming up this next year, please let me know. I'm definitely open to suggestions. I have a couple of things planned, but for now, I'm just kind of like riding on my coattails from last year. So anyway, I'll talk to you guys all very soon.